Welcome to the Free Your Spirit podcast. My name is Louise Wilson. I'm a mystic, healer, entrepreneur, and business coach, and I am obsessed with helping you open up the lines of communication with your spirit so that you can receive the wisdom, the guidance, the clarity, and confidence you need to reach your big goals and dreams. Hey there, folks, and welcome to episode 19 of the Free Your Spirit podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode because I have a wonderful guest joining us, a good friend, Sandy Viteri. And Sandy is a marketing strategist, and she's crazy about helping elevate the collective frequency through integrative mind, body, and soul. So Sandy is a really perfect guest to be joining us here on the Free Your Spirit podcast. And particularly in this episode, we're actually going to be talking about a topic that Sandy and I both love. We're going to be diving more into the world of sleep and the world of dreaming. But before I do that, I just want to share a little bit about Sandy's background, because Sandy's had over 2 decades working with major enterprises and software development companies. And after following a very highly successful career as a vice president of global marketing for a $350 million media measurement and analytics company, Sandy decided to take her marketing expertise to help other entrepreneurs find their voice, create an impact, and share their message with the world. So I'm really excited to have Sandy here today, because Sandy, from her business perspective, it's really wonderful to have her here join us, because I know that we do have people that listen to the podcast that are entrepreneurs. So if you're needing guidance or help, I'm sure you could feel free to reach out to Sandy on Instagram, and we'll be including all of the ways in which you can connect with Sandy at the end of the podcast. But today in particular, we're really going to be diving more into the realms of spirituality. And I'm so excited, as you know, this is a topic that's so dear to my heart. And in particular, talking about the world of dreams and dreaming. And so before we actually dive in, I just want to say one other thing is that one of the other reasons why I really wanted Sandy to come here and join us on the podcast episode is because, I work with my clients in the dream time. I help them to connect with their spirit while they're dreaming. But one of the greatest challenges that people have is actually getting a good night's sleep. And so that's why I really wanted Sandy to come on here today, just to talk a little bit about that, because she's got some awesome strategies and tips to share with us. So welcome, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be here. We have known each other for a while now, and I really admire what you're doing for yourself and for your clients as well, because connecting with your higher self and being able to do all this spiritual work that you're doing is, I feel, now more important than ever before. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Sandy. And I know that I love that we're having this opportunity to chat, because I know that we have time too later in the podcast. We may well have an opportunity to dive into more of the ancestral realms, because this is another topic that we're both very excited about. And I know that our listeners too are very much excited about being able to connect with their ancestors. And this is something that we can do when we're dreaming, and it's so much easier for our ancestors to connect with us while we're sleeping, because the veil is thin, and our spirit is already traveling in those realms, and our conscious mind is switched off. And so they can drop in and they can visit us. But again, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to have those vivid dreams, to have those and remember those visitations. So I was wondering, Sandy, if you maybe could share with our listeners, for the people who do struggle to get a good night's sleep, what strategies and tips you have, that your go-to tools, if you will, when it comes to sleeping.
Sure. Well, I think that the first thing is really understanding, why are we having a lack of sleep or insomnia, right? Where is it coming from? Because as you said, I mean, getting a really good night's sleep, and what that means is, yes, we go to bed and we close our eyes. However, that doesn't mean that we're having a good sound sleep. We haven't reached the REM, the REM, right? Which typically takes about 3 hours for us to get there. So in my case, for example, I was working, and then I got to a point where if you're only sleeping 3-4 hours, maybe 5 or 6 a night, but you're not reaching that REM until 3 hours onto the time that you got to bed, then you're not actually having that chance to connect, as you're saying, to actually, first of all, relax, and then to be able to connect. And when I say connect, is connect with your higher self, connect with your guides, connect with, whatever you want to call it, with higher beings. So if that is the goal of anyone listening or watching this podcast, you have to understand the importance of sleep, right? And where your lack of sleep is coming from. Is it coming from toxicities that you have in your body for what you're ingesting, what you're eating, or what you're putting on your skin? Is it coming because of you have a stress or anxiety? So really sitting down and understanding and giving sleep the value that deserves, which is we are meant to be sleeping. We are meant to going into that relaxation mode. Why? Because those are the moments that we regenerate, that we help our body, our mind, and our soul to regenerate it. So if we're not sleeping enough, we're not allowing our bodies to regenerate, and it's detrimental for our health. So before I go into giving any tips as to how anyone can actually achieve a good night's sleep, I think it's very important for your audience to sit down and realize, okay, how many hours am I sleeping? If I'm not sleeping enough, why is it? What is the root cause for my lack of sleep or insomnia? That would be my first recommendation, for someone to actually recognize it and admit it. So for me, it took me a long time, Louise, to recognize that I was sleep deprived, right? So right. I thought that it was okay to work the number of hours that I was working. I thought that it was okay to keep pushing myself. I thought it was okay not to sleep, that it wasn't that important. And reality is, I was wrong. You need your sleep in order for you to be better in your mind, your body, and your soul. So
good. It's so good. I think to really start at this point, because it actually, just in you talking, it reminded me I had a very poor habit, not related to sleep, but it was actually related to eating. Yeah. And I used to think, oh, I'm far too busy to take lunch, or I'm far too busy to, and it was almost like, I can honestly say it was almost like a badge of honor for me, that I was so busy that I didn't have time to sleep. And I think it is recognizing, it took me to have a health crisis to and I ended up going to see sort of Chinese medicine. That's the route that I took to heal myself. But that's when I discovered, oh, wait a minute, food is my fuel. And I think that we don't realize that sleep is also that regenerative time for our body. So such a great thing. And excuse me, listeners, my dogs, you probably can hear maybe you can hear my dogs barking in the background, but sending all the love and good vibes our way. But that's such a great place to begin, acknowledging the importance of sleep. Yeah. So something you talked about, Sandy, with that, I mean, did you journal on that? Is it something like, when did you come to that realization for yourself?
Well, unfortunately for me, it was when I actually hit a wall. My body just started to shut down, which I really hope it never happens to any of your viewers or listeners. And that is why I think it's so important to create awareness around this, right? It's not only because of the spiritual side, wanting to connect and for us to elevate our soul, right, but also for that restorative, as we said, making sure that our minds and our bodies are good, in good shape while we're going through this lifetime, right? Because if we are tired, if we are, you know, in a bad mood because we didn't get enough sleep, then we don't function well. So how did I, to answer your question, how did I find out that one of the things that I was going through was lack of sleep? Is when I was completely burned out. And that was recently, earlier this year. And literally, I was just working nonstop. I was sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night. I thought that it was okay. I lost tremendous amount of weight because I wasn't eating either. And we got to a point where in one day I just sat down on the couch and my husband said, enough. It was a Tuesday, I remember. And he said, we're going to take the day off. I'm going to take you to the beach. I was feeling so guilty, Louise, so guilty for taking a day off, for going to the beach on a Tuesday during the day. But here I was, the person that I was working, you know, more than 12 hours a day. And I still was feeling guilty from taking time off, something that is already programmed in our minds. So that is how I find out. And then my whole body started to shut down. I started to have massive headaches, migraine headaches. I was having IBS. So my whole system was already giving me indication that there were things going on, but I wasn't paying attention to them. And it wasn't until after I went through that scary experience that took me to the hospital 3 times in a row in the span of 2 weeks. I went to the emergency room because of the panic attacks, the anxiety attacks that I was having. I was not sleeping, not eating. That after that, it was when I said, enough. I got to take care of myself. I got to do what is right for me and take care of myself so I can be here for humanity. Because if I'm expecting to save the world as I want to, I got to feel okay. I got to get enough sleep. So that's when you start realizing that the more you push yourself, the more that you're doing, and the less well you are, the less you're going to be able to do for others. The well-being that you need to take care of is on your own, for yourself. And when you feel well, you can take care of others. You radiate, you love, you give light to others. But that doesn't happen if you're not feeling well.
Exactly. I so love this because, you know, as you were talking, it made me think too about myself. And I think a lot of, and the guilt, right? And I think I would imagine that guilt is something that so many people feel about, maybe guilty about just putting their feet up on the sofa and taking time out, or because I think we for most of us, maybe we've got this, been raised in this culture of working hard, you got to work hard, you know, all of those beliefs, and they're things that perhaps have been passed to us from, you know, our conditioning as we grow up. Maybe it's also come through the ancestral line that you have to work really, really, really hard to be successful, or to get the things done that you need to get done. And I love this, Sandy, because it's something that I suffered from. And it was very much, you know, and a lot of the work that I do is about being able to trace those beliefs, the limiting beliefs, and doing the work to heal and release them. You know, what I used to do, you do end up being burnt out. And that's why I so love that we're talking today also more about the spiritual side of our nature and who we are as spiritual beings, because I truly believe that the more we lean into that, you know, whether it's in the daytime or in the dream time, we can draw from that source that's going to help us to do things so much more easily in our lives, right? Because if we're just relying on our conscious mind and our physical body to hustle our way to things, then we're just using it like a small fraction of our power. So good to touch upon that. And I'm sure, you know, there's probably many of our listeners here who maybe feel the same way about the guilt around, you know, taking time off. So you mentioned about the symptoms of being sleep deprived, and I'm curious if you could share maybe a little bit more about that, just so that our listeners anybody that's listening may be able to kind of say, oh, maybe that's something I need to look at. What would you want to share there, Sandy, to support people?
So once again, it all depends where your lack of sleep is coming from. But generally speaking, what you would see on someone that has not slept in an extended period of time, because I would like to clarify that as well. Like it is okay to not have a good night's sleep every once in a while. It's just going to happen. We're human, right? We're spiritual beings in a human body, and it's going to happen. However, it is for us to identify and to realize, okay, well, if I'm not sleeping for more than, 3 days in a row or 7 days in a row, now I do have something that I need to pay attention. And why is it, right? So some of the symptoms that I felt were massive headaches that turn into migraines. Okay.
Right.
I was having IBS as well. And IBS, for those of you that don't know what it is and what it stands for, is irritable bowel syndrome. Now, there is a direct correlation between your stomach, okay, your gut, which has a nervous system of its own, and the brain, right? And you were talking about the conscious mind. So if the conscious mind during wake time is feeling discomfort from what I have eaten throughout the day, then that is going to cause for me not to sleep at night. That is why I'm saying it all depends on where your lack of sleep is coming from. And it's worth for someone to sit down and really pay attention to, what am I eating? What is my environment like? So another symptom is, it depends on where you live, right? If you live in a place where there is more sunlight than places where there is less sunlight, right? Why? Because when there is less sunlight, you're more likely to have artificial light, like I have it right now, which has higher intensity of blue light, which by default, having that much higher intensity of blue light is basically tricking our bodies to believe that it's still daylight. So it's messing up what is called our circadian rhythm. There is a rhythm within our body, or a internal clock in our brain, and it works in our entire body on how we're able to sleep or not sleep. It determines when it's daylight, when it's nighttime, okay? And it usually runs every 24 hours. So some of the symptoms would be that you're extremely tired during the day, that you're exhausted, that you're in a bad mood, that you're stressed, that you have anxiety. So all those things can actually come and generate simply from not sleeping.
Right. And so some of the tips, maybe as somebody prepares, I guess it's also looking at what you're eating. I don't know if you wanted to share anything more particularly about that, whether there are any foods in particular, or whether per your body type or what have you. I don't know if you wanted to share anything there, Sandy. Was there anything you wanted to add on that? Or
sure, nutrition, absolutely. Nutrition is extremely important, because let's say that, for example, a large portion of the population has allergies to dairy, but they don't know it, right? So let's say that you ate something with cheese right before you went to bed, or you decided to have a cup of coffee. Again, you're thinking that you're not doing anything wrong for your body. But let's take those two examples. If you ate the cheese, let's say you had a pizza, right? Now you have, all the carbs and the pizza, and you have the cheese. And let's assume that you're one of those people that have an intolerance or allergy to dairy. So what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen overnight? All that energy that you can be using to rest, right, and digest and to elevate, now you're using it to literally just digest all the food that you just put in your body. So your energy is being used in something that you could have prevented. You could have said, you know what, I'm going to stop eating, let's say by 8 p.m. or sooner. And that way, my body is not in the process of digestion throughout my sleep. Okay. So that's one thing with eating, and also paying attention to, do you have any allergies? Do you have any food intolerances? Why? Because like in my case with IBS, what happened is I would eat something not knowing that I had, food intolerance. And I would spend the whole night gassy with pain in my stomach, inflammation. So anything that we put in our mouth goes in straight into our entire body, our entire nervous system, as well as what we put on our skin. Okay. And so all those things we need to be paying attention to.
Great resource. And so what would you suggest, is there perhaps a routine that people could maybe think about using, people that are perhaps struggling to sleep at night? Or, I love ritual, because I really feel that ritual, as we do rituals, ceremony gives form to the formless. So personally, I love to include ritual, before going to sleep. I think it's really important that your bedroom, as an example, is a temple. I think that too often our bedrooms can become, there's two rooms. This is what used to happen in my home. Like if we had guests, the two rooms I knew people wouldn't be going in would be the bedroom and the office. So they became dumping grounds. And I don't know if any of our listeners can relate to this, but they do, right? This can happen. So I really had to pay attention to that. And I think it's really important that we treat our bedroom as a temple, because this is what the ancient Egyptians did, right? They built temples for dreaming, and they created ritual around dreaming. Like if we can treat the nighttime hours, is a very, very powerful time. It's a very sacred time. And so treating our bedroom as a temple, cleansing it, clearing it, using essential oils, I think is another beautiful thing to do as we cleanse and clear. And also I like to have a little bit of air coming in through, so just a little bit of fresh air coming into the room to circulate. But really creating safe, sacred space in our bedroom. And I notice the difference. If I'm not remembering my dreams and I take time to cleanse and clutter clear, clutter's really good to get clutter out of your bedroom, because that overwhelms the mind, body, and spirit, but really clearing the space. So I think that's a great strategy to use when you're perhaps not having remembering your dreams, maybe not having a good night's sleep, because I think when you step into the bedroom, you can feel, it feels so good, right? But I'm curious too, Sandy, any other things that you could add to that? You mentioned about lighting and diet. What would it look like to have like a very simple routine that could really support our listeners in getting that good night's sleep?
Sure. So one of the things, I love everything that you said, by the way. I love treating your bedroom as your temple. We should be treating our bodies as our temple, right? So the very first thing is taking a look at what is in our minds before we are actually heading to the bedroom, because maybe it was extremely stressful day. Maybe it was a sad day, right? We're going through so much right now that we are absorbing the news, what is happening. Maybe something's going on in the family. So it's really on your way to that bedroom is thinking, what is in my mind? And if you feel like you have a lot going on in your mind, like going, like you cannot put it down, my recommendation is actually to take a notebook and just write down what is in your mind, because it may be a to-do list. Typically, that is what it is, right? It's like, what do I have to do tomorrow? Who do I need to talk? And, I need to talk to my VA as entrepreneurs that we were talking about, right? I am in the middle of a launch, what's going on tomorrow? And so all those tasks or to-dos, my recommendation is take them, put them on a piece of paper, so that way that you don't go to bed feeling that you have unresolved issues. You will feel like you have literally taken everything that was in your mind and you dumped it into a piece of paper, and you can say, I'm going to put this to rest. Now I can go to sleep, right? I don't have to think about that throughout the night. So that's the first thing that I recommend. Taking what you have in your mind, if you feel like you have a lot going on in your mind, and put it down into a piece of paper or a book or whatever it is, a journal. The next thing is absolutely positively not bringing electronics to the bedroom. right? There is one thing called it's digital eye straining. And what that means is once the sun has already gone down, right? If we're going to turn on artificial light, which is typically what we do when we go to the bedroom, then what do we do next? We look at our phones. All right. So that is one of the biggest reasons why people are not able to sleep, because they continue to consume information and content from their phone that then stays in their brain processing. It's almost like when you eat. If you eat just 1 hour before you go to sleep, your body is going to be digesting that. If the same thing happens with the phone, think about it as you're eating content and you're putting it in your brain. Your brain is going to be digesting and it's going to be working. So my recommendation is take that phone, leave it outside of the bedroom. Don't bring it into the bedroom with you, because it's going to continue keeping your brain going. The other thing that we talked about a little bit is light, right? So the circadian rhythm really works on that 24-hour body clock. And it helps you to see we are programmed that way. Our body system is programmed that way to see the sunrise and to see the sunset. And when the sun is setting, that is why in nature, you know, most animals stay within a safety place because they know that there is danger outside during the day. So this system tells us what we need to be careful about. And if we start feeling symptoms, is our body telling us, hey, be careful, you need a better night's sleep. So with the circadian rhythm, light during nighttime, artificial light is not helpful at all. So nowadays, there is companies, one that I have actually been looking into since this happened to me. The company name is Blue Box, is BLU, not BLUE, but BLU Box. And what they do, they have created this secret formula with blue light. And actually, they created glasses. So that way you can put the blue glasses on when the sun goes down. And if you have any artificial light around you, it doesn't affect you. Or if you look at your phone, it doesn't affect you. Another tip, there is a way how you can put that light on your phone. So if you decided to look at your phone after hours, meaning after the sun has gone down, then your phone turns red, the front of your phone. And that is what helps your retina and your brain to look at that as the softer natural blue light as opposed to the artificial blue light. And this company also created the light bulbs, the red light bulbs that you can put all throughout your house. Now, obviously, this is an investment. This is something that you have to, and I'm not partnering with this company at all. I'm actually looking into them. I'm looking at what they do and how they do it and how efficient it is. But for what I heard so far, and for what I know about the circadian rhythm, it does really help preventing from this dangerous, horrible light, which is the artificial light.
That is so good. That's so great. Thank you, Sandy. And I love how you said about, putting everything down on paper as well, sort of like to be able to just put that to one side. And another thing that popped into my mind as you were talking about that is that I love to work with my spirit and my ancestors and my guides while I'm sleeping. And I think that we can be anxious about things that we're dealing with during the day. But I think the more that we can really embrace the fact that we have this spiritual team that is with us 24/7 and in the nighttime hours, so that if you do have a problem that you're working on or that you're concerned about, you can actually give that up. Yes. To spirit, to source, to solve for you while you're sleeping, so yeah. This is the work that I love to do. And I actually do have a free resource on my website where it's connect with your spirit while you're sleeping, so that you can solve any problem or challenge, because you can, and this is what I do nightly. If I have something that I'm struggling with, I might just write a question under my pillow. And how can I resolve that difficult relationship? And I think in doing this, instead of lying awake, trying to solve it with your conscious thinking, just giving it up to your spiritual team to give you the answers. And this is why it's so important for us to get those good night sleeps, because once we start to remember our dreams, we can problem solve.
Yes.
Our dreams, they aren't sort of these random, a lot of people think, oh, it's just random thoughts that you're processing from what's happened in the day, and nothing could to solve those challenges, to give them up to our spirit and to get really creative messages and guidance. And I think the more we really lean into that, the less stress we need to feel. That's how the perspective that I love to share, being able to do that. And so that's wonderful. Those tips there, Sandy. And also I wondered if you could maybe just touch upon any strategies that you think might help listeners who struggle perhaps with anxiety or anxiety attacks, whether going through the day or whether in the night. If you wake up in the night and you have an anxiety attack, is there any tips or strategies that you could share that can help people, manage that?
Sure. Well, I definitely had anxiety and panic attacks. Actually, mine happened during the day. So I didn't experience actually one at nighttime that woke me up, but I do know that oftentimes people can, have them at nighttime, that you wake up in the middle of the night. So the one thing that I'm learning about me, because I would like to mention that this is about getting to know us, right? When you start in this journey, it's more or less starting to learn about yourself, about your feelings, about your emotions, about what is going on with your body, how your body works, and what the results are from that, right? So for me, when I have those panic attacks at the beginning, I would have them and I would just get more tense. I would get more scared about them. And over time, and this was very intuitive work for me, for other people, they will have to work with somebody like you. But it was really paying attention to how I was feeling, where that panic attack came from, how did it happen, right? What was going on in my environment around me that triggered something for that to happen, right? Because it's not like it just happens overnight, like there's triggers, right? So once you start paying attention more to your soul that is really talking to you, my realization was, I don't have to be afraid of this. I can embrace it. And by embracing it and learning more about me and trying to understand and being more careful, more loving to myself, I'll get through it better, easier, more smooth, in a smooth way, right? But the more that we kind of like reject it and feel fear about it, then it probably grows more. So my recommendation for anyone, and again, there is different reasons why someone would feel anxiety or panic attacks or anything like that. But definitely my recommendation is take the time to feel yourself, to listen to yourself, to go within, to start understanding what is your body trying to tell you, because it could be one of two things. It could be your higher self talking to you saying, you need to pay attention. There needs to be a redirection, or something is happening or is about to happen. It could be a breakthrough or something, or it could be your guides. It could be your masters, however you want to call it, trying to communicate and saying, tun, 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 nudging you, saying, come on, you need to pay attention. Maybe you are on the hamster wheel. Maybe you are not paying attention to life. You're experiencing every single day to the max. Right? You're just going. So once again, tuning in, going inward, as opposed to trying to look for the solution so much outward. And again, rest, good sleep, exercise. These are the typical ones that you hear people talking about: meditation, yoga, exercise, good night's sleep, and eating well.
Beautiful. So love it. This has been so good, Sandy. I'm so excited that we were able to have this conversation here on the Free Your Spirit podcast. It's been incredible, and thank you so much for coming here to share your wisdom, your knowledge with our listeners. And I don't know if you had any other closing remarks before we sign off. I'd love for you to come back onto the show, because I just feel there's so much more that we can talk about in this topic. But this has been a really great, I feel, introduction and I hope listeners, if you feel that there were things in here, if you want to leave a review or share with us, reach out to us and share with us any aha moments you got from the podcast. But I really feel we got some really great sort of strategies, tips, and tools that people could start to kind of implement right away. It's been wonderful. And we will include in the show notes some of the resources that Sandy mentioned. So you'll take a look at the show notes and we'll include those resources on there for you guys. All righty. Thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us on the Free Your Spirit podcast. I'm so thrilled that you're able to join us and to share these incredible tips and tools with our listeners. And so before we sign off, I wonder, Sandy, if you could just share, where people can find you. And I know you have some cool resources that you can share with our listeners. So maybe I can just hand it over to you and you can let people know where they can find you.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure to be able to share my experience with you and with your audience. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And people can find me at Sandy Viteri. That is my Instagram, and that is where everybody goes. So feel free to go there. And also, I'm actually putting a free downloadable PDF that talks about everything with regards to sleep, some recommendations, tips, and tricks. So feel free to go to my Instagram at Sandy Viteri and download that PDF from there.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for being here. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I love being able to connect with you in this way, whether you're listening on YouTube or through our podcast. I'm sending you so much love across the miles, across the ethers, and we shall see you in the next episode. Bye for now.